The sky above Varex's colony burned with streaks of green plasma. Enemy cruisers floated over the shattered cities like iron vultures, dropping fire onto streets already buried beneath smoke and broken stone. Deep inside an underground shelter, Governor Lyra pressed trembling hands against the cold wall while frightened civilians crowded around her. Children cried softly. Fear poisoned every crowded hallway. Every emergency channel repeated the same terrible message. No reinforcements were coming. 3 months earlier, Varex had been a thriving mining world on the edge of Confederation space. Merchant fleets carried rare crystals from its mountains to hundreds of prosperous systems. Music once echoed through crowded markets filled with traders from distant planets. Then the Korth Dominion arrived. Their empire consumed weak colonies for labor and resources, leaving empty worlds drifting in darkness after every conquest. Lyra had begged for assistance from every major power in the sector. The Confederation claimed its fleets were occupied defending richer systems. The merchant guilds said saving Varex would cost more than the colony could repay. Even neighboring worlds ignored the distress calls, fearing retaliation from the Dominion. One by one, every promise of aid disappeared. Another explosion shook the shelter. Dust rained from the ceiling while alarms screamed through the tunnels. General Tovin approached the governor with exhausted eyes. "Outer defense grid collapsed," he whispered. "They'll breach the final barrier before sunrise." Before Lyra could answer, a young technician sprinted across the command room. "Unknown vessels entering the system," he gasped. "No registry matches. Their drives are unlike anything we've seen." Hope flickered painfully inside her chest. "How many?" "Only 12 warships," the technician replied nervously. "But they're moving incredibly fast." The command screen suddenly filled with static. A rough voice emerged through the interference. "This is Captain Elias Ward of the Terran warship Resolute. Any surviving civilians on Varex's colony, respond immediately." The shelter fell silent. Lyra exchanged confused glances with her officers. "Terran?" she asked carefully into the communicator. "We never contacted your people." A brief pause followed. "You didn't need to," the voice answered calmly. "Nobody deserves to die alone." Outside the shelter, the unknown fleet emerged from the darkness beyond the planet. Their ships looked brutal compared to elegant Confederation cruisers. Thick armored hulls covered in weapon batteries pushed forward without hesitation. The lead vessel was enormous, scarred by countless battles, its engines glowing bright blue against the void. Admiral Krell stood on the bridge of the Dominion flagship Iron Rain, staring at the approaching Terran fleet with open amusement. The Korth Dominion controlled hundreds of conquered systems, and no civilized species challenged its authority without overwhelming numbers. Yet only 12 human warships advanced toward nearly 200 Dominion vessels. "Primitive designs," Krell muttered while studying the tactical display. Human ships looked ugly beside sleek Dominion cruisers. Thick armor plates covered their hulls like scars. Giant cannons lined their sides instead of elegant plasma arrays. What kind of species still relies on kinetic weapons? A communications officer lowered his head. "The humans are broadcasting on all frequencies, Admiral. Put them through." Captain Elias Ward appeared across the bridge screens. His dark uniform carried no decorations beyond a small silver emblem shaped like Earth. Unlike most commanders Krell had encountered, the humans showed no fear. "This is Captain Ward of the Terran Defense Fleet," he announced calmly. "Withdraw from Varex's colony immediately or face destruction." The entire bridge erupted with laughter. Krell leaned closer toward the display. "You are heavily outnumbered, human. Leave now, and perhaps I will spare your crews." Ward's expression never changed. "You have 30 seconds to move your fleet away from the planet." The transmission ended. Krell clicked his claws together in irritation. "Destroy them. Send the forward cruisers first." 10 Dominion warships accelerated toward the Terrans, plasma batteries glowing bright red. On the tactical screens, the human vessels suddenly split apart in every direction. Their movements looked chaotic, almost reckless. Then the humans opened fire. Massive metal slugs screamed across space at terrifying speeds. The lead Dominion cruiser exploded instantly, its shields collapsing under the impact. Another lost half its hull as human missiles slammed through the reactor core. Shock spread across the bridge. "How are their weapons piercing our defenses?" shouted the tactical officer. Before anyone answered, dozens of smaller craft burst from the Terran carrier Resolute. Human fighters twisted between plasma blasts with impossible precision. They swarmed Dominion cruisers from every angle, targeting engines, shield arrays, and weapon ports simultaneously. Krell watched in disbelief as one damaged Terran destroyer accelerated directly into a Dominion battlecruiser. The collision shattered both vessels apart, but assault pods launched from the human ship moments before impact. Boarding parties detected, an officer screamed. Krell felt something unfamiliar tighten inside his chest. Fear had finally entered the bridge.
Today.
7 brutal hours later, burning wreckage drifted across the Verex system like shattered moons. Dominion formations had completely collapsed beneath relentless Terran assaults. Human destroyers charged directly through enemy lines while fighter swarms hunted isolated cruisers with machine precision. Every Dominion tactic failed against opponents willing to sacrifice ships, endure impossible damage, and continue advancing anyway. Inside the Iron Rain, Admiral Krell stared silently at the tactical display. More than half his fleet was gone. Entire squadrons had vanished beneath human kinetic bombardments that struck with the force of asteroids. Even worse, Terran boarding teams had captured 3 Dominion cruisers intact. "Admiral," whispered his second officer nervously, "the humans are demanding surrender." Krell closed all 4 eyes briefly. For decades, the Dominion had crushed weaker worlds through fear alone. No species had ever forced a Korth fleet into retreat. Then Captain Ward appeared across the shattered bridge screens once more. "This is your final warning," the humans said coldly. "Power down your weapons and surrender immediately. Continue fighting, and we will destroy every remaining ship." Krell studied the exhausted face staring back at him. The Terran captain looked wounded, his uniform burned along one shoulder, yet his eyes still carried fierce determination. "You crossed half the galaxy for strangers," Krell muttered. "Why?" For several seconds, Ward remained silent. "Because 3 centuries ago," he answered quietly, "Earth begged the galaxy for help during the Cronies' invasion. Nobody came for us either." The bridge became silent. Ward continued speaking while human warships drifted around the surviving Dominion fleet like hungry wolves. "We learned something during those years," he said. "Civilizations built on comfort hesitate when innocent people suffer. Humans do not." Krell slowly lowered his head. Around him, damaged Dominion ships began shutting down their weapons one after another. Hours later, Governor Lyra stood beneath clear skies for the first time in months. Fires still burned across distant districts, but Terran engineers already worked beside civilians restoring power grids and medical stations. Human soldiers carried wounded strangers through ruined streets without hesitation. Captain Ward approached through the rubble. "You saved us," Lyra whispered. Ward looked toward the stars where Terran warships guarded the edge of the system. "We made sure you were never abandoned again." Across the galaxy, terrified governments would soon learn an unforgettable lesson. Whenever desperate worlds cried for help, humanity answered howling from the void. And humanity never stopped.